Look, I know it's nauseating, and I don't want to be just another guy heaping praise on Tottenham Hotspur, but I do think they may have cracked the code of football. Every time the opposition's about to score, have the ref blow the whistle. This is the Arsenal Vision Post-Match Podcast. My name's Elliot Smith, Black Man Twitter, Yankee Gunner. Yeah, if we can follow that model, and look, Mikel is a very bright guy. Edu, everyone at Arsenal, I think right now is really clicking in terms of the way we're running the club, but you can borrow from other clubs, and as much as it may pain us to borrow from our noisy neighbors, I think borrowing the idea that if there is ever a situation where the opposition looks like they may be in a position to score, you just have the ref blow. Like after Zinchenko gave the ball away, when the ball comes to Cunha, have the ref blow, and he's not going to score. So it is an innovation that we can certainly look at. We will be discussing City Spurs a little bit because we will be discussing how good the table looks. And I think it is safe to say that Arsenal are both clicking and looking strong at the top of the table at the moment. That's exactly where we wanted to be at this point in the season, and it's exactly where we find ourselves. Fulham could have done us a little bit of a favor, and I do think there was a foul on the contested header right before Trent scored the winner in that game. But, referee's going to referee. All things being equal, we could have been 3-0 ahead if it weren't for a penalty not given. But you know what? By and large, I think I will take the refereeing decisions and the results as they fell. It leaves us in a very good place. And we're going to talk about an Arsenal game that I thought saw a lot of really good signs continuing on from the Lens performance, but also raises a couple of questions that people are debating, and we will certainly debate those. And by debate those, I mean I will say my opinion, and Clive will tell me why it is wrong, and then I will feel safe in the knowledge that I have stood corrected. Thank you for being here. Love you so much for being a part of this podcasting thing that we are doing and all the stuff and things and stuff. We've got Awesome Hen scouting videos over on Patreon, and we have a really fun instant reaction we did Elliot versus Paul. We're going to have 3 big questions this week over there. Would love to have you over there, but and this is a very critical point, if you do not go there, we are just so happy to have you here. The key thing is wherever you go, there you are. And if you take one thing away from this pod, I hope it is that axiom, that truism, that tautology. And here with me now is Clive. You can find him on Twitter at CliveBFC. Hello, Clive.
Hello. How you doing?
Lovely to see you, my friend.
Yeah, good to see you.
This is one of my favorite times of year. Do you want to know why?
Tell me.
So a very magical thing happens when you are me living where I live, having so many dear friends and colleagues living where you live, because there's this phenomenon of me having to hear how cold it is there. And then I look out my window and I look at my temperature and I go, I would gladly trade every day of my life here for one quote unquote cold day there. So did you survive the quote unquote cold day at the Emirates over the weekend?
It was cold Saturday, colder than Wednesday. It's cold, very cold. And
bitter cold. Yeah.
I did a little walk yesterday, my Sunday walk after the game, and it was very rainy. So I'm not going for good weather period. And hey, look, compared to you North American / Canadians nearly where you are. I've been to Toronto and I know that this isn't really cold, right? So yeah, that part of the world is very cold.
I do have a high this week of -3, so I will look for a warming trend when that hits. So that is, of course, in Celsius for all of you Celsius aficionados there. Fahrenheit people know where I'm at. Let's dive right into this. And first of all, just quickly, we're top of the table. We're looking good. Liverpool are constantly playing basketball games with inferior opposition. City suddenly look like maybe they have a little bit of difficulty shutting the back door. Once a season, it feels like Spurs blag a result off them where the XG is like 72.5 to 0.02, and it's like 4-4 is the final score or something. But as you watch these games around the league, did you kind of enjoy the fact that Arsenal maybe control games a little more than what we're seeing from some of our title rivals?
I just think it's a season, and the good thing about
it is
the
one
season,
of those.
Yeah, mate. The thing about football I love is not what I think I know, is what I don't know, and what's going to happen. You don't know what's going to happen, and that is the fun, and just allowing it to happen. And so, yeah, watching I didn't see the Liverpool game, but watching the Spurs City game, hey, look, Spurs always get something at City. In fact, Spurs have dropped 2 points as far as they're concerned. They normally walk away with the win, right? So
the XG difference was only like 2.5. For them, they're usually 2 goals clear by that point.
Exactly. They just have no fear of that ground or playing that team. It's just the one team. They always seem to have something over. I mean, going back to the Champions League game, I mean, crikey, how they got out of there. just incredible. And so, yeah, it was nice to watch that game and to see how it developed and to see how much praise is flowing around for these other teams. Hey, look, I'm starting to worry less about our outward perception and how many flowers that we're getting. Let's just focus on what we do. And eventually, if you care about that type of thing and you're winning games continuously, people will have to throw flowers your way. And does that really matter? You know, if they're throwing flowers or not, mate, just throw us the medals. That's what we want, isn't it? We want the trophies and the medals, and I think that's what we need. That's the next step we're all waiting for. Whether it's this year or next, it needs to happen next couple of years for sure.
It's funny because I've heard some people describe Arsenal as flying under the radar, and I was like, that doesn't seem right. I hear about no one but Arsenal. And then I
No.
realized it's because I do an Arsenal podcast, I consume Arsenal podcasts, and I am an Arsenal supporter. What I realize has happened to me over the years is I have consumed less and less and less mainstream football content in general. I just find the depth of the analysis, and I understand they're generalists, right? So you're not going to get that specificity. But as a result, I'm somewhat cut off from the narrative, and not having Sky Sports, not having to hear, Carragher and Neville and stuff. Like, I have this nice little bubble I get to exist in where I think about Arsenal in the way that we Arsenal supporters think about us. And I just think we look really, really good. And against Wolves, and by the way, a Wolves side that I think is better than people give them credit for. Now, look, they were missing players. They had suspensions. This is not a full strength Wolves, but they have gotten some really good results this season against big teams. I thought we came out of the gates and we just looked so strong. And the attack was clicking. Kai gave way to Trossard, and I want to talk a little bit in this pod about Trossard at left 8 because that position continues to be an evolution, I think, for us and understanding what it does. But what did you think about that opening period? And I think the guy pulling all the strings, of course, Martin Odegaard, who had a game that is absolutely out of the top drawer and right back to the best he can offer.
Yeah, we started pretty sharp. And one thing that I think is one of our key strengths is our pace of pass. I think we move teams around very, very nicely, but really you notice it. And when I worry about us when the pace of pass is not there, like at Chelsea, for example, when the pitch was very, very heavy, because we can move people around, we can cut the angle back again, and we look very good pace of pass. The pitch is beautiful, and the ball's moving, and everyone's on it, attacking wise, and that's definitely a trick for us. And we have a look in wide areas. So the recent teams have played like a 5-3-2 against us or a 3-4-2-1. Doesn't really matter, but they're trying to get into a 5 at the back line. But then the 3 in the middle of the pitch, they're having to struggle to get back in and double up. Now Brentford did it for as long as they could. Lons couldn't manage it for too long. And in this game, I noticed very early. I watched the first half this morning, and we were going out to our wings to see who the double up person was. Almost have a look at them, see what they did, and keep the ball circulating until we find a gap, get a 1-2 going, and then we're in. I think sometimes 5 at the back playing against Arsenal is not what I would do. I would go for a 4 at the back, but also a 4 in front. And do you see what I mean? To make
Don't share this stuff, mate. Come on.
to make sure everyone knows what their roles are. Sometimes when you have 5 at the back, you get comfort with numbers, and you stand still for too long, and people can run through you. So I wouldn't do what these recent teams have done. Funny enough, the last 3 games we've looked better attacking wise. I think we're playing against those systems. So have a look at who's doubling up in wide areas and then go from there. And but hey, look, Elliot, football's about players, right? Get some of our better players on the pitch in health next to each other with the combinations and the chemistry we grew used to last year. Then you start to see something that you recognise, and that's what's happening in recent games. Our captain is back and he's got that spring in his step, and when he's doing his thing, we look different. We look different. We look more flexible and intelligent from what we do on the ball perspective, and that's just having a very, very good player come back into your team.
Yeah, I think the thing with Odegaard, right, is when he's shooting from 20 yards out, it's not that he takes bad shots. He can shoot from there, but I think he can do better from that position. When he's shooting from 14 yards out, I don't think there's a better finisher in football, at least certainly not an attacking midfielder coming into the box, is the technique he has to finish his chances. You see it on Wednesday. You see it again in this game. He's extraordinary. And what I loved about this game is he was breaking lines. He was delivering the final ball for his teammates and then arriving into the place where he can be most dangerous, top of the box, center of the box, 14, 15 yards out where he finds corners. Just really, really impressive. He also had the most line-breaking progressive passes of anybody in the Premier League this season in this game. That's the kind of stuff you expect to see from him. And just to give it context to how strong we started, 6 shots, 2 goals before Wolves played their first attacking third pass. Not before they had their first shot, before they played their first attacking third pass. I mean, they were absolutely dominated in that opening period. And I do think that people underestimate what it takes to come out of the blocks like that, having played in midweek. These teams have all week to sit back and wait for you. We played in midweek. It's not a lot of rotation. And so I think it's understandable, especially if these performances don't finish off quite as strongly. By the way, I don't think it's a coincidence that when you look at City against Spurs and Liverpool against Fulham, Liverpool have something in the tank for the finish, right? Spurs have something in the tank. They play better in the second half. City maybe faded a little bit. Again, midweek football. So you have to look at the impact that makes on the game. The goals to me are really worth dissecting, though, because they're the exact thing that we haven't really seen. The triangles on both sides, the overlaps, the one-touch passing. And I think we have to take a moment for Jesus' role in both of these. And it's bizarre to me because it feels like the narrative coming out of this game is Jesus is not clinical. The first goal doesn't happen without Jesus. The second goal doesn't happen without Jesus. We probably should get a penalty for Jesus making a brilliant run that he's held back on. He has so many good contributions in this game. And I can't come away from this game with anything but feeling that he has completely changed the way both of those pods look. The first time ball back to Zinchenko for the second goal is brilliant. The way he gets his back into the defender and gives a pass for Saka to make to go back to Tommy, back to Saka, that's bringing these pods to life. So did you come away from this game enjoying what Jesus did? Because I feel the narrative has been too strongly tilted to the chances he didn't finish.
Yeah, just ignore that rubbish. I thought the analysis on Match of Day was just so churlish. I mean, how can you come away from watching that game and then focus on the things, on missed chances?
Shearer stuck into him, right? I didn't see it, but I heard about it.
Yeah, I'm thinking, grow up, man. Yeah, it's just not going to let it get to me and ruin my enjoyment of what we're very, very lucky to see. And for those that are similar age to myself, have been doing this for a long, long time, watching this team for a long, long time, these periods don't come along every 2 minutes, right? And I've learned now, I take it for granted. I used to pick and choose whether I go and watch a Champions League game. Not doing that again. So if I can get a ticket, I'm going to be there, right? So when I look at the team, Elliot, a bit more, I see a collective unit. And I always judge them on our speed of transition. But really, from when we lose the ball, how aggressive we are to get it back. And it's everybody. Everybody's on point. It's not just one or two people. There's no Marcus Rashford walking about on the left wing. Everybody, if they make a mistake, the reaction is huge. We saw what Martinelli did in this game. It's a collective thing. It's a real collective edge. And when I see that, I know we've got a flaw in the team. So we're going to be fine. It's about what we do going forward. And I think we're a collective team going forward. And Jesus epitomizes that for me. On the first goal, that's just backing into somebody, roll it off, bit of invention. Saka does a Luis Suarez tackles the defender and then gets the ball back. Suarez used to do that, tackling you. You can't react when you get tackled and he slots it into the net. But the second goal was a thing of beauty, absolute beauty. People were just standing and applauding. It was just perfection. Saka, again, he's smart. He goes inside on occasion, then he goes outside. He keeps his defender guessing, goes heavy to the back stick. As he goes heavy to the back stick, Jesus does his work. He rolls out of the box completely and anticipating that there's going to be a pass for him. And that's the skill. That's the stuff you can't teach, right? And he rolls away, knocks it back to Zinchenko and he just follows it back to Odegaard. And we've seen that goal 10 times now from Odegaard. So Jesus is just smart. Just a smart footballer that plays in a collective way. And he suits his team. He suits the identity of this team. In fact, he's helped form our attacking identity. And I can't. Can you even think about the Lacazette days? And and we were we were happy in periods those days. And Lacazette was somebody that used to hold the play, set the play. But the invention that Jesus has, the dynamism, the wing creativity, he's like a wing centre forward, so he can chop you, run through you as well. He's just got more moves in him. A wonderful player, and we just need to keep him healthy, mate. I don't care if he plays past 75 minutes rest of the season. Just get him off that pitch, get his legs rested, keep him healthy, because he makes all of us feel happier. He makes all the rest of the team look better, and that's what's really important.
And what's crazy is, like, he's just coming off a midweek where he scored, like, he showed he can finish chances. It's not like he's not scoring anything. He's scoring for fun in the Champions League, which seems to be his raison d'etre. I mean, it's funny. I look back at the Liverpool team that won the title, and in the season Liverpool won the title, which is what we're trying to do. Their center forward from played 38 games, scored 9 goals. On 14 expected goals, by the way, meaning he dramatically underperformed his expected goals, meaning he wasn't finishing. So all the things you want to level at Jesus about goals. Well, I saw a team win the title, with a guy who had a 9-goal season and massively underperformed the chances he had created. So we know it can happen. And the reason it can happen is they had guys on the wings who could be really impactful. And, I think we happen to have one in Bukayo Saka, who's, at his absolute best. Again, there was one really interesting moment that I think sort of highlights what we've been missing from Odegaard, and that he's back. Odegaard in the 10th, 11th minute, got the ball and played a really clever little through ball between the fullback and center back to Saka, and Saka wasn't alive to it. You just watched it go by, and then he held up his hand and apologized, because that pass just hasn't been on. We just haven't been fashioning those openings. But, if Odegaard's going to be back to his best, everyone's going to switch on. Everyone's going to start to make those runs and really show for those opportunities. I loved the second goal in particular. I think one thing that you see sometimes go around social media is a highlight clip of an Arsene Wenger goal, or even a new Unai Emery goal, and people are like, oh, when's Arteta ball going to generate something like this? It's like, I don't know. I like generating 3 points, but that's a picture book goal. And it comes in part from a player who we're going to have to talk a little bit about in Zinchenko, because he's, I think, driven the majority of the conversation after this match. But as far as that goal, Clive, I think it's so interesting. Saka has a cross that goes all the way to the other side. If you watch the way it develops, Zinchenko doesn't take time. He doesn't stand on the ball 3 touches. First time to Jesus, first time to Zinchenko, first time to Odegaard, first time in the net. It's all played at that one-touch tempo. And a lot of one-touch stuff for the first goal. We're going to have more of the one-touch stuff to break down these deep blocks. We did it twice for 2 goals. What do you think is Zinchenko's involvement there? Because I think the Zinchenko conversation might be the most pitched in terms of player performance coming out of this game.
Yeah, 1-2's pace of pass, mate. That's who we are. Getting that rhythm going together and just moving off of each other. And when we do that on a good pitch, we're very difficult to stop, right? So that's step one. Zinchenko, now you spoke earlier about analysts who are generalists. And so most people who don't watch Arsenal every single week like we do will say that Zinchenko is not a bad player, but maybe can be caught defensively. We watch him all the time, and we know he's an amazing player on ball progression-wise. He has in the top 3 for touches. He's all over the pitch when it comes to heat map. But in the last 15 minutes of a game, he can be prone to defensive error. Would that be fair, Elliot? Most defensive errors that we remember have come late in games. So how have we managed him so far this year? We've managed him by taking him out because he had a few calf injuries. We've been taking him off on occasions where we've been able to. And I'd like to see it continue, if I'm honest with you, because I know it's a weakness of him. And it's not ability, it's concentration. And the mistake he made here today, he had a touch like he was in midfield, and he got pressed out of the picture, just disappeared on him, and he lost the ball, right? And but some of our attacking plays, it's nothing without him on this particular day. So when you've got the points in your back pocket, you can take it, right? But lesson to be learned going forward, you ask yourself a question. If I said to you now, you may say, yes, play him, but against Liverpool away on the 23rd of December, if you ask me, the pragmatist, what would I do? Well, I would go Tomiyasu and White as my fullbacks for that day, right? So because I don't want to give them nothing at Anfield, not a sniff, right? You may say, and I would be absolutely fine with it. Let's control the ball. Let's control the centre of the pitch. Let's make sure they can't have the ball. Let's shut the crowd up. That's another way to approach it, right? So, and that's just the difference between me and you, Elliot, probably. But yeah, I would go big blokes at the back and sort them out, right? And take it because our big blokes can still play anyway. So it's not an issue for me. I know some people say that Tomiyasu is not there from an offensive point of view. I think he can be there. I think that's improving all the time. I think there are other players in the team that can take that mantle anyway. So that's what I would do. But Zinchenko in the last line shows frailty on occasion. So I almost want to say, so what? Because with Jesus, I think he's transformed our belief structure. They've come along and said, you guys are good. And from the moment they arrived, everything changed. So I give him a break. And in this game, it didn't cost anything, but I think we should listen and learn from it. There was frayed edges in this game, so just learn from it and maybe use their position to rotate.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing again is that he had a very, very busy game and a very, very important game. And I just don't know if the parts of the performance that work without him. And I understand that there has to be a balance. A couple of things to bear in mind. First of all, he was second in ball recoveries, only to Trossard actually, who had 10. Zinchenko had 8. Which I think is an interesting reference point. He was dispossessed 3 times, which was the most in the team. Saka second at 2, so not a huge amount. What's funny is we think about his passes, the wayward passes, and then you look at it. I mean, the guy played 83 passes and completed 78 of them for 94%, the highest completion percentage in our team, along with Saliba. He misplaced 5 passes in the entire game. It just so happens that, he had a couple of very high profile turnovers. And I think what's hard for him, he plays with the least net behind him of anybody we ask to do as much as he does.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is when he goes up the pitch, when he steps into midfield, if he loses the ball, that left defensive space is pretty open. On the right side, if Ben White or Tomiyasu steps into that space, who's over there on the right? That Rolls Royce who can turn up the miles per hour as high as he needs to go to recover in Saliba. Gabriel's really good, but he doesn't have the jets that Saliba has. And I think when Zinchenko loses it, that space is going to look really vulnerable. And so he's playing a bit of a high wire act.
I got to drill into that a little bit more because I think Gabriel has been remarkable for us defensively.
He's great. He doesn't have the speed of Saliba, though.
I think he does have the speed of Saliba. I don't think there's much difference there. So. I think the issue with Zinchenko is the risk taking that he takes. He takes more risks, but those risks are what we miss from a ball progression point of view, right? So we want him taking those risks. We want him nicking it around the corners because we break out. But when he doesn't break out or it gets cut out, it can leave us a bit exposed because that transition moment, particularly when you win it back, what you're trying to do, Elliot, you heard me say it before, when you win it back, you want your first 2 passes. As soon as you get your first 2 in, because they're trying to do exactly the same as us, win it back in 5 seconds. So Zinchenko, he's brilliant at this. Once he wins it, he gets out of dodge, goes through the lines, and we into wide spaces. So he has the most risk associated to him. Without a doubt, just by the way he plays. He plays like a number 10 at the back of the pitch. And sometimes the risk is almost self-imposed. He takes a long pass on when he doesn't need to. But some of the intricate risk, I'm sort of all for, because it's risk versus reward. How many times are you watching teams at the weekend playing out of their box? An unbelievable amount of pressure. But they know if they get the pass right, they break free and they're 3-on-3 at the back. Do you see what I mean? And so Zinchenko is part of that model for us. So we have to accept the fact he's a high risk taker. It's just, can he reduce when you take those risks? It's very difficult to say to him, don't be who you are. Because as you are going to allude to, before I chopped you in half, some of our attacking play comes from him a lot. So I don't think there's an answer. For me, it's about game manage the whole game. So at 2-0 in this game, and I love what we did the other day by taking our fullbacks off. I would like to see a little bit rotation here, but we lost Tomiyasu in this game, didn't we? And that
Yeah.
maybe affected what we would potentially
Yeah, he
could have
probably
done.
wouldn't have finished the game.
Yeah, exactly what we
Yeah.
could have done. So these things happen, right? I think we know who he is. Late in games, concentration defensively, he gets a bit bored, right? That's what basically happens. And but the rest of the time, he's absolutely fine for me.
I just think the way he plays in the final third is the way he plays in his defensive third. And he doesn't have the mindset of a safety first defender. I mean, if you look at it, he led us in progressive passes, I believe. Actually, sorry, Odegaard, of course, did. He was second in progressive passes. He led us in final third entries. He finishes with an assist. He's up there. I think only Martin Odegaard completed more passes than he does. You know, we rely on him so much to build play and create those overloads on the left-hand side, and he does it beautifully. And I think what Mikel said about it, actually, no surprise here, is the really intelligent analysis, which is you have to love him. This is a quote. You have to love him how he is. Every player as well. He has strengths and weaknesses, and Alex has got many more strengths. This happened. It can happen to any player. We have to learn from it, and this is the key, because in those areas, it's a big no to play, especially after certain things on the previous phase. And that's it. We will get better. And I think that's the key. I think his benefits do outweigh his drawbacks, as Mikel said, but in certain phases, you have to know better. And I think for their goal, Rice carries it to him. I don't think Rice does him any favors, to be fair.
No, he pops
And
it off and then closes the space down.
It's not a position to play. It's just not a position to play. You know, and from a game that's very, very comfortable, you make it a little nervy. But, I mean, on another day, when players are finishing their chances, it's already 4-0 at this point. And people are talking about how Zinchenko pulled all the strings and he's such a critical part of how we play. But that error winds up looking much bigger in the context of what the scoreline was.
Yeah, I think I found myself on Sunday, I sent a little note out saying, I think, hey, we're fans, right? So we talk about every single game in massive detail. So, but I did feel some of the analysis around this game. I felt people were squinting to find a problem. You know what I mean by that, Elliot? We were squinting. Oh, we got to take our chances. Or Zinchenko's got this.
Were people, you were at the ground, did people walk away feeling a little annoyed from the game? Because the funny thing is, I came away feeling really good, you know, that we were a hair away from that being a pummeling. And on the whole, it was a really good controlled performance. But I got the sense that there was another reaction out there that was much more annoyed by the way the game finished.
Yeah, I found myself, I said to you, didn't I? So I hope I wasn't too negative on the IR, you know, and the reason why
I think calling for Mikel to go was over the line, but you were in, you know,
negative
you were in the mood.
for me, you know. So I think I come out of the ground sort of not disappointed, but like, oh damn, I don't want to walk away with that feeling of we're, you know, not hanging on, but I was a bit nervy towards the end. You know, they didn't have a chance really after they scored. But Wolves are a good side, and I just worry about them all the time. And I had this stat in my head that we hadn't won 3 Premier League games on the bounce. It's just in my head. I thought I just didn't want to slip up, so I was probably overly nervous. So yeah, I felt it was just a lasting memory. Could have been a bit better. Scoring the 2 goals as we did was great. But then they had a goalkeeper problem, an injury. It sort of took momentum away. There's a couple of injuries in the game at times when we had them, and it sort of killed the game. There was 7 minutes extra time in the first half. I think 7 or 8 in the second half. That's a lot of stoppages, and it stopped us from really sorting them out. You know, and we couldn't keep the flow going.
I don't know where the 9 minutes came from or whatever it was in the second half stoppage time. And that was, I genuinely no idea where that came from.
They had a genuine goalkeeper injury, obviously, because he went off towards the end. So he went down like twice in the half. You know, when you score a goal, you want momentum to carry on. So he stopped momentum after that period, then went down again in the half. And I felt it was a problem for us to restart and get the energy back into the team. So when you're 2-0 up, you're playing time out. Do you see what I mean? You're playing time out until you get back in, get a bit of a kick in from the manager. You come out again. You don't quite take your chances. It's like, okay. Well, the penalty was a crucial moment for me. The Jesus one, otherwise I thought he was going to head it in. If that's 3-0, we're making substitutions. We're thinking about the next 2 games. All right, so we didn't quite get that. So yeah, it was a strange game. So I had a strange feeling coming out of there. But funny enough, when I sort of was driving home, I sort of listen to the Arteta press conference. And I said to myself, man, you need to sharpen up, Clive. I said to myself, basically, because he was really happy. And on the end of a European week, I thought that was a really good performance, because those European games are a little bit stressful and emotional because there's a lot on them and the club want to do well, and it was a good performance. And when you see the other performances this weekend on Liverpool and Man City, they were not in control of their games at all, and we are like we're moaning about one step on the ball from Zinchenko in the back line, which gave them one of about the XG details, Elliot. I mean, gave them a chance out of nothing, So yeah, I think we need to stop squinting so hard, maybe, and make sure we see the good things that are happening in this team.
We outshot them 19-6. The XG was 2.8 to 0.7. It's one of our biggest XG differentials of the season. It's one of our top XG performances of the season. One thing that I love is after they scored, they did not have a shot the rest of the game. I know it felt nervy, but they did not get a shot the rest of the game. I mean, we did get our foot on the ball. There were chances to make it safe. We'll maybe come on to a couple of those in a moment. I think it's interesting how Mikel talks about Zinchenko versus how he talks about Tomiyasu, for example, though, because with Zinchenko, he's saying, hey, look, he's got a lot of positives. The positives outweigh the negatives. He's just got to use his brain in certain phases of play, right? With Tomiyasu, what he says is interesting. Yeah, the first thing he offers defensively is tremendously reliable. And attacking, he has certain things he can develop and improve. His timings, positioning, certain deliveries and actions that he can open some spaces for others. He is so willing to learn and do that. Again, he's another player that is given another level and still has another level in him. And I think that's an interesting point, because I think if you compare the Brentford game to this game, I think Tomiyasu is the biggest stock rising, to use an instant reactionism from Brentford to this game. In Brentford, I felt Tomiyasu was solid, but slowed the attack down too much, too willing to go around the horseshoe. In this game, he had an assist. He had shot creating actions. He had final third entries and penalty box entries. He was connecting with Saka and Odegaard and driving the ball into good spaces. He was finding that position at the top of the box. The one, the inside, the like half space top of the box to play that ball through. I thought this was a much improved Tomiyasu performance there. And it is interesting what's happening, what's developing with Tomiyasu, because he's certainly an option on the left in games where we want that defensive solidity, and to come in for Zinchenko when he's just hitting that, brain fog moment of the game around 70 minutes. But do you think he's going to keep White out of the team when fit for the time being? How do you see that developing?
I just think he should be part of our fullback rotation, and I like him in left back as much as I do right back. I do, because what he does, he defends against the transition, and he's very, very smart in his one-on-ones, when to go tight and when to drop off and go for a run. And what I have liked about him this year is his attacking play. He is not prepared to just stand there and watch. If there's a moment that he should drive into a position, he does it. And maybe he's too keen to do it. That's what Mikel's talking about. Maybe he's got to think about the timing, because you are a good player. You will get the ball. So calm down, slow down, and really think about it, because you can affect the play going forward. He's got 2 feet, instant passing, always has a picture, head up all the time. All the time his head is up. That's why you know someone can take it first time off both feet. I really like him. And what I like about him is how he's prepared to develop himself. So we had a picture of him when he first arrived, and now he's taking, early in the season, he's taking shots on the left-hand side of the area. He's putting in dink crosses, he's feathering his crosses in, he's taking first-time Cedric crosses, and he's energizing past Saka at a time when we maybe lost a bit of because we were really playing a strong 3-2 structure, and maybe the right back wasn't getting forward as much on certain days. And I'm not being one for overlapping fullbacks, as you know, Elliot. I've never given it maybe enough credence, but seeing Saka getting booted in the air by continuous fullbacks, and when he comes inside getting his legs kicked off, I can see the value at this moment in time. I think it's very important that we create that space for him, particularly early in games, by driving through, underlapping and overlapping, to allow this kid to go and do what he needs to do. And Tomiyasu's taken that on board for me, 100%.
There's a really interesting thing happening with the fullback position, because there's so many different types of fullbacks being played in different types of ways. Liverpool are playing with David Beckham at fullback, which is sort of an interesting evolution. We have flexibility, especially if Timber's fit. When you look at the fullback core, Zinchenko, Kivior, Timber, Tomiyasu, and White, some fundamentally different profiles there. But if you take Zinchenko out of that group, you start to see more of what Pep has created with the four tall defenders, essentially, four big center backy, full backy type, Walker, Akanji, Ake, Stones, Diaz, Guardiola, right? Like, we're starting to look more in that mold. And it's interesting that not only did Pep move away from Zinchenko, Pep moved away from Cancelo, right?
Yeah.
He wanted guys that could win the physical battles and defend at fullback. And so I do wonder if there's an instinct to move to that kind of system for Mikel. Some really interesting developments at fullback, but I think at least at this moment, I do think Zinchenko is intrinsic to the way we build play and the way we want to attack. So
On some
I
days,
do
Elliot.
agree with Mikel. Yeah, well, sure, of course, there are days for it, but I do think in general the benefits outweigh the drawbacks. But football's a low-scoring sport. No matter how much you dominate, if you let a team get a goal from nothing, that is hard to overcome. One thing that helps play Zinchenko, and I think we should just touch on it quickly, is when you have the Energizer Bunny who can run like lightning at left wing. And we should give Martinelli his flowers for that defensive recovery. I mean, I know it's just one moment in a game, but he doesn't get his goal. It would have been so poetic because he runs back, he races back, he gets his shoulder in, he's physical, he wins the ball, and then goes up the other end and has a curler from the left channel that just goes off the post. He's a player that I think, obviously everyone knows I adore him, but the intensity to defend, and I love what Mikel said. To summarize it, you have to see yesterday's training session because he did exactly the same. And I put the video of it because it's incredible. The mentality and how much they want it. And it was match day +2 and -1, and they wanted to do it yesterday. So I had no doubt that today they were going to do it. He's been unlucky in certain moments today. He had 2 big chances as well to score. The contribution he has on the team is immense. I'm really happy. You love to see that, Clive, right? A player who can run as hard to recover defensively as he will run to get on the end of a move in attack. And it seemed like the Emirates loved it too.
Yeah, I mean, again, there's a defensive focus in this team that everybody is bought into, and Martinelli. I mean, you think he was on $3,000 a week the way he plays. I mean, seriously, he just doesn't care. And I said last week, I said maybe we're underestimating the team's ambition. I think that we all want to win, but they really are showing it by their actions. And some of the things that they're doing are just great. And we talked about Zinchenko there, and I just had a quick check as you were talking. Zinchenko played the ball through to Martinelli 21 times. And that's that link there, that's his top pass combination. So normally you get it back to your centre back, etc. He's not having that. He's going forward. He's taking risks. He's pushing the ball out to our top talent, right? And that's what you want. He's giving the guy, the difference maker, the ball. So yes, he may have stepped on it, but I want Martinelli having 21 passes from Zinchenko. You know what I mean? Again, a big adaptation for him because the Zinchenko-Xhaka partnership was key to last season, and that was broken up. And so that link to Martinelli is now being restored. It's been restored. And when he's got the ball, these last few games, he hurt himself. You're never too sure with injury. Was it coming? So he hurt himself after Brazil games, etc. And now he seems back really, really fit and just keep feeding the ball. The Sevilla game still in my memory. What he did in that game was just incredible. And just keep feeding them the ball. I do, whenever I see something with our two wide men that looks so good, your thought process goes to, what if they're not there? And because they're so fundamental to how we play. And when we're thinking about the next phase of this team, we have to think about that signing. What if they're not there? How can we protect their legs? Another thing, walking out the ground, Elliot, I have to be honest with you, I look at the team and I think the standard's rising. I look at the players who are now developing in front of my eyes, and I can just see the standard growing. And I think we're going to have some questions soon about maybe some that are being left a little bit behind. And I think as we get close to end of the month, we're going to use a lot of this group because we have to, because of the games. And I think we'll find out a lot more about who's at the level going forward. And I think that's going to be the next phase of our Christmas chat.
Yeah, with so many games right now, I mean, we obviously did an awesome pen scouting video, but like, I don't think it's time to get stuck into the transfer topics yet. I mean, obviously, David Ornstein did an interview where he said we have some FFP concerns that we might even have to sell to make the
we will
Raya move permanent. That we had no other actions planned in January, and frankly, like I know people aren't going to want to hear this. I don't doubt that. I actually don't think we're going to do any significant business in January. I think first of all, making the big splash like a striker or something, I think is very, very difficult to do in that period. And where we are right now with the financial side of it, at least from what I understand, I think if you want to go get a guy like, a midfielder from a Premier League team, then you're going to say, well, why would they be selling in January? Polina, if he goes, do Fulham go down? I don't know that they want to take that risk. I know Villa are not selling any players in January. At least I can't see it. So yeah. I'm not even gonna think about that just now. We can have a proper transfer talk when the time is right. And obviously, if some big rumors drop and there's big heat around it, we'll go big on that. We'll do some more scouting videos over on Patreon. But for now, I think we can stick with this game and the Luton game coming up, and maybe a little bit more around the league. We got to talk Trossard's performance because I think there's a very interesting discussion to have around that position in particular. But there is absolutely no way you're going to talk about left 8. It wouldn't even make sense to talk about left 8 if we didn't first talk about how to get your privates clean, shorn, smooth for the holidays. I mean, jingle bells, jingle balls, it's all right there in the copy. You can imagine. But basically, we're talking about stocking stuffers, right? And we're talking about what kind of package you can put under the tree or in a stocking or for Hanukkah or for whatever you're celebrating. Or if you're not celebrating anything, it's still just good to get your privates in shape. And by the way, like the reason I like this product is it is a product that finally figured out, hey, you know what? People actually do this and there's no product really properly built for this stuff. But now they've expanded out. So you have the Performance Package 5.0 Ultra. You have the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra with the advanced skin safe technology. All right, for reducing nicks and cuts, which, let's face it, there are a lot of places you don't want nicks and cuts. That would probably be top on the list. There's the Weed Whacker 2.0 for nose and ears hair. I have moved into the age of life where that is actually an essential tool that you have to have in your tool belt. There's the Boxers. I use them for working out. They're extremely cozy and comfy. The Shears 3.0, which is the nail grooming kit. It all comes with the kit to carry it with you, the kit, the zipper bag. You know what I'm talking about. Anyway, you should get it. You should get it for the holidays as a gift, or you should get it for yourself so that you are the gift. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code ArsenalVision at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use code ArsenalVision. Say ho, ho, ho to a well-groomed mistletoe with Manscaped. Don't know what that means. Don't want to know what that means. And health. I'm telling you, like... It is the worst thing in the world about getting older is some of the things that you start to feel. And I started to have some gut health issues. That is no fun. I was looking for something to deal with it. I turned to AG1. I really believe that it has helped. It has helped me reduce my coffee intake. It's also allowed me to get rid of the gummy vitamins. I looked on the gummy vitamins and some of them were like 50 or 60 calories per serving. Number one ingredient is sugar. There's absolutely no need to do that. With AG1, you have 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, adaptogens, probiotics. All right? You can do it by just putting a little bit in water in the morning, drink it down, gives you that boost of energy, designed by athletes with athletes in mind for recovery. So, a really high-quality product. There's just so many cheap, low-quality supplements on the market that don't actually provide a benefit. This is one that I think you will find really does. And by the way, keto-friendly, vegan, paleo, low sugar, all that stuff. So it works with your dietary habits, whatever those may be. You get the idea. If a comprehensive solution is what you need from your supplement routine, then try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. Go to drinkag1.com/vision. That's drinkag1.com/vision. Check it out. And last but not least, if you are building the best team, you go into the market and you buy the best talent. Maybe Arsenal will be doing that in January. But you can be doing it anytime with Indeed, the hiring partner that helps you attract, interview, and hire all in one easy place. It's really this simple. Imagine this for a second. Why would you go to 30 different job sites, post 30 different times, check all the job sites to see if anyone's applied, have to be like, oh, which site was I on when I had that applicant? Forget it. With Indeed, you have one site that does it all. With Instant Match, over 80%. Here we go. Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree. Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. And that's actually a pretty big deal if you think about it. It's not just that they make it easier. It's that they hire quality matches. And I like that. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences. So the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed and hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying you heard about it on this podcast. Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed, Clive? Is that enough of it?
Indeed.
Okay. So I think we got a really interesting position on the pitch, and I think it is the left 8. Look, the right 8 is Odegaard. He's fantastic again, thank God. The 6 is the best player in the Premier League, Declan Rice. Rodri's in the mud, as the kids say. Declan Rice clearly surpassed him and now the best player in all of world football. But the left 8 is an interesting one. We could go with Jorginho and Rice and use Rice there when Party's back, maybe use Rice there, and you get a certain type of thing. But this Kai Havertz and Trossard thing is an interesting one because, I looked at this game and I felt that Trossard wasn't as build-uppy. Was he connecting as much? And, was he really as good in the midfield areas? But we talked about this in the summer. Why buy Kai? The data, the one thing I will say over on that Patreon side, when we do the data reviews, Matt's data, Giant Gunner, the data that he brings us, sometimes it points to some really interesting stuff. And if you look at Xhaka last year, Xhaka had an incredible amount of touches in the box. More than Odegaard, I believe, if I recall correctly. And that left 8 is the crash the box, get into the box, late arriving role, which is why we thought that Kai would be so effective there. And if you look at Trossard yesterday, I think his game is a really interesting one because as it turns out, right, Trossard wound up with, I believe it was 5 shots to lead us, 0.8 expected goals to lead us, a couple of big chances. If he finishes, and I realize, if my grandmother had wheels, she'd be a bicycle, but if he finishes those chances, we're saying, wow, this is the picture book of how a left 8 should be. He arrived in the box, he got on the end of moves, and he scored his goals. Because he doesn't finish, and oh, by the way, a millimeter of offside against Brentford means he didn't have a goal in that game as well. Clive, I think this is a really interesting developing situation because Trossard did the thing I think we think this role is supposed to do. He just didn't quite finish it off, which is get in the box, take the shots, have the chances. What do you think about how this position is developing? Because it feels very work in progress-y to me, what we're trying to do with that.
Yeah, so I like the variation that we're showing, using his position appropriately. I think Havertz maybe away from home could be a little bit more used in that position because I think he just adds more physicality to who we are. At home with the balls moving nicely on our pitch and we're getting lots of touches, it's really good. Xhaka used to get 40 to 50 touches, Elliot, max on a good day. Trossard in this game had 68. Right, so so you're adding high touches to this position, right? And obviously he had 5 shots. He's getting into the box. I think this position is, my thoughts, Elliot, it's the most interesting position in our team. I think our ceiling is in this position, and I think Trossard offers a certain style. I think Havertz offers a certain style, as does Rice, and I'm fine with all of them, long as we find the right resources for the right day. I think Havertz could obviously play an Odegaard position in a slightly different way. He ends up being like a second forward, so he ends up being almost like a second target. We have these options now. I think Trossard sometimes in the duels, as the ball's bouncing, obviously Rice and Havertz are much better in winning those collisions. Right? But Trossard's facing the right way and it's an attacking duel. He's very, very smart. He's a top finisher. So when he gets around the box, you expect him to score. He had one-on-one in this game. He just sort of delayed it, almost had too much time. You try to create an angle for the
It was
shot and just got,
lovely from Odegaard to find him
yeah,
too.
he's
Love
got,
that lovely little step over and slip ball. Oh, so
yeah,
good.
Odegaard, mate, he's back, mate. Everything was right for
Mm-hmm.
him. He's back. Flick flack passes through gaps. I mean, no one passes the ball through the middle of the defense that many times, and the striker can still get there before the keeper. I mean, everything was on his game. So Trossard left a goal on the table there. I like him there. I generally do. There's one bit he was a little bit slow getting into his running once he went out to left wing. And Arteta was a little bit unhappy with him. And I said, mentioned it on the IR, but you know what? I don't know why I was in that mood in the IR. Forget about it. It's just one of those things that happen. You're trying to keep the momentum high because you know you don't want to let a team back in. And so Arteta just told him about it. But he also praised him about his performance. And I think it's a great way to use a 29-year-old. He will not be on the wing forever. So this positional change is important for him. And there's coming no reason why he can't play on the right-hand side as well. It's just having the intelligence to receive the ball, move the ball, small space player, get shots off both feet, inverted crosses. He's got all the tools to do it, and on another day, we'll need something else. And whether that's Havertz, whether that's somebody else, but I don't particularly mind. But you think about what we paid for him, and you think about his goal involvement since the moment we paid for him, I dread to think where he would be if he wasn't around. And he's really come in and had an effect to us. And when he arrived a little bit with a bad rep for falling out of De Zerbi, etc. You're wondering how he's going to integrate into the group. Well, he's integrated really, really well in many different roles. Centre forward, we never thought he could do that to that level when we were fading there. He's also played on the left, he's played on the right, and now he's playing on the left 8. So incredibly valuable player to us. And yeah, I'm okay with this role for now. And you think about, but when Odegaard's playing like this, honestly, my mum could play left 8. Do you know what I mean? Honestly, it's a joke because he just takes over. So, yeah, a really good performance from him.
It's so interesting, like comparing and contrasting him to Odegaard's performance, right? Because they're playing the same position, so to speak, on opposite sides of the pitch, but you can so clearly see the difference in role. I mean, Odegaard had almost double the touches in the attacking third of Trossard. Odegaard played 82 successful passes to Trossard's 35, but Trossard had those 5 shots, led us an XG, double the touches in the penalty box, right? I mean, progressive passes, Trossard had 4, Odegaard had 21, right? So Odegaard's building play, Odegaard's creating, Trossard's floating around that area, trying to find the space to get into to be on the end of stuff. And it's just a couple inches away from being the perfect game for both of them. Odegaard creating everything and finishing one thing himself. Trossard just not finishing his couple of chances. And the second one, I mean, he does have 2 excellent chances in this game of the 5 shots he took. But that second one right before Wolves score, Clive, it's brilliantly created. I think he probably just has to lift it, right? Like I feel it's a hard one because the keeper is close, right? He doesn't have time to do much. I mean, what do you think he needs to do there?
If you look at Trossard's goals, just like think back in all your memories, a lot of his goals have been instant technical goals, instant shots, instant actions, cutback shots, very instant. In the one at Leicester, then he had to fade across the area and he took that shot and it was disallowed, I think it was, from the previous corner. That's a nice goal, but it's very instantaneous where his technique shows up. But this one, he had a bit of time to think about it as he's going through. And I think he just changed his mind on the finish. That's all. Goalkeeper came out, narrowed it, so he needed to create an angle. And while he's creating an angle, the chance went away from him a little bit. That's all. Not the end of the world, but he's such a good finisher. We almost expect him to score. So it felt like the disappointment was greater to me because, I don't worry about him. Some of his finishing under the most intense pressure have been really, really good. And he's not a kid, right? And I think we need that sort of calmness and experience around the box and making the right decisions. And we're going to need him as his pressure gets higher. People like him are really going to come to the fore. So yeah, just one of those things there. No drama.
Interesting for Kai Havertz, by the way. He had a very interesting first couple of minutes on the pitch because he had a bad giveaway early on that put us in trouble. He also won the ball that leads to Odegaard playing in Trossard that should have been the third goal to put the game away. So,
Yeah,
swings and roundabouts. So
fair enough. It's interesting watching Havertz come on to this game. He can read that second ball like nothing else, mate. Honestly, and he looks like a proper athlete. He started to move across the ground, and you start to look at him and think, "Cool, crikey, we look quite solid in that middle," And yeah, he's starting to get it.
Yeah. So before we wrap up, a couple of things I think we can wrap up from this game. We still got quite a bit to touch on. Eddie Nketiah comes on. This is a funny one, right? Because I think this is a Rorschach test on what you care about with players. It's a bad miss, I guess you'd say. I don't actually really have a problem with it. I think he's put through. I think he picks the right finish, and the execution's off by 3 inches. And that's I simply am never going to get too upset at a player for missing a chance. On XG, that's like a 0.5, which is a very big chance. But what XG tells you about that is it's a 50-50 basically, right? If you remember, Jesus had a fantastic chance top of the box against Spurs in the North London Derby after, I think, was it Son who got dispossessed? Someone got dispossessed in their
Madison.
own. Madison, yeah, because, forgot he even exists. And Jesus shoots over. And I said there too, again, these are hard chances in the moment. I'm not going to kill Eddie for the miss. What I will say is, and maybe I see this more when he comes on as a sub, I feel like there's a lot of walking. Like, I feel like you put this thought in my head and maybe it's never left me. Like, I want to see you shot out of a cannon for that last 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes.
I think,
and I can't get away from the fact that I don't feel like I see that.
Yeah, I think he finds it hard to come off the bench and get up to speed very, very quickly. You can see him trying, and he's just getting that second wind. It takes a bit of time for him to get there. On the chance, he's running through, and for those, I did have a close look at this, and he just doesn't quite get his feet right. He doesn't quite get his stride pattern right to make sure his standing foot is close enough to the ball to have control of the angle. That's all it was. He still got a very good shot off, and it hit the inside of the post, and everyone was cheering, thinking it's going to go in. He did it mostly right. It didn't quite happen. I never worry about things that happen when you do the right thing. If he'd have tried to go around the goalkeeper when that shot was on, and the goalkeeper takes off his toes, everyone's going to say, "Why didn't he just take the shot?" That would have been the wrong thing. He took the right shot. He took the right attempt. It didn't quite work out. I do think when Jesus is playing like this, and for them people, I'm one of the people that likes Jesus, and missing the odd chance we win a game of football, I'm not worried about, because he said he's part of the first 2 goals. But you do start to see the gap in intelligence and execution and impact, and that gap is growing. The more games Jesus has, the fitter he becomes. The gap is growing, and the next man up is probably Trossard. And for me, if Partey was fit, the next man up after that would be Havertz. So you could 50-50 at Trossard, the centre forward. And that's just how I feel about it. Arteta is fully behind Eddie. He gives him his minutes. He's played a lot of minutes this year. He's rewarded us on some days, and you feel a little bit like shortchanged on others. But my view on it is natural selection will happen as the standards will raise in this group. And so this will sort itself out rather than zeroing on people when they have a bad moment. I don't think it's that bad a moment. And, on Tuesday night against Luton, he could be the guy that gets the goal that wins us the game. And so I've learned that from my time of trying to analyse Eddie. Every time I think it's over, he sticks one in the top corner. So, yeah, that's the way it goes.
Yeah, I see what Jesus gives us. And I think what stands out to me with Eddie is it's not just that he's not at Jesus's level, which again, backup strikers aren't meant to be as good as starting strikers. That's not how it usually works. But stylistically, there's such a huge difference. And so depending on what you like in a striker, for example, as we said at the beginning of the pod, Clive, there's some people who came away from this game looking at Jesus's performance as he missed his chances. That's what stood out.
Yeah. But
I came away from
on
this
that
thinking it was
second
a
goal,
typical top Jesus. Yeah.
on that
Yeah.
second goal,
Go
if
ahead.
you watch it, Elliot, just watch when Jesus rolls out from the defence.
Mm.
And I've often said that Eddie stands between centre backs, waiting for the next chance. If Jesus doesn't roll out, we don't have the 1-2, and then we don't have Odegaard's shot. And so that's the key thing for me. That intelligence, knowing how to support your teammate, which I felt was a real thing on the whole day, actually, on our whole performance. I felt the team supported each other on the ball really, really well. And when they lost it, they supported each other off the ball really, really well. And I think it's a big part of our identity. And then Jesus epitomizes that, as many others. They really do. They play the game like they like each other. They really do work for each other. And it's everybody that's doing it.
Mm. I've said this before, but I really believe it. I don't think that there is a backup striker who is as discussed by a fan base as Eddie is discussed and debated by ours. And I think the reason is obvious. He's just had to play a lot more than would have been the plan. And it's not even that he's been dreadful or anything. It's that we're trying to win a title and we're trying to win a Champions League potentially. And we're probably good enough to do both if everything breaks our way. And so I think we feel the gap in quality when we have to use our backup guys starting game in, game out, but unfortunately, I just think that's going to be true for so many teams. And maybe there is a need to raise the level, but it is also very hard. Like, I don't think we have ever looked as good in the last 2 seasons as when Jesus starts. Are you going to buy a guy to replace him and Jesus will have to battle for his role, maybe at left wing, right wing, and center forward, and there's going to be another guy who's the big man on campus at striker? Or are you going to buy another guy whose job it is to be a backup? Because that's very hard to do. In general, my opinion on this. Don't buy backups, right? You say, well, what about Leo Trossard? Does Leo Trossard look like a guy who's comfortable being a backup? No, he came in, he played great. He finds ways to start because he's too good not to get into the team. So I think it is very, very difficult when you have a guy you really like Jesus, but you probably need another guy of that caliber. That's a hard needle to thread. We'll see how we try to thread it, because I think a lot of people feel that strikers on the agenda. As we take a breath for a second, though, Clive, look, we get through this game. The defenders were, I think, frustrated to give up their clean sheet, but it is a really good win, I think, where we see signs of real immense improvement in the attack yet again. And ultimately, I was always going to be more concerned with how we looked in the first half of this game than the second, because we did play in midweek. And so sometimes those second halves are not going to be as good. As I mentioned, just ask City.
Yeah.
But now we have to turn the corner quickly to Luton. And I've seen some of those things on social media, and I've been guilty of this at times. Like, I think we should start Nelson and Kedia. We should start Sego Jr. We should start Miles Lewis-Skelly. I think I'm all for doing that in League Cups, or, the PSV game coming up comes to mind. But I'm not all for doing that away in the Premier League. Liverpool literally just drew 1-1 at Luton. And so while I think we should win this game and would be very disappointed if we didn't, my opinion, Clive, is you got to turn around and just go full bore again. Now, I know we have Villa and Brighton on the horizon as our next 2 Premier League fixtures. We have a midweek that should be a very easy game. I mean, Mikel loves the winning culture stuff, but next midweek should be a nice, easy one. But this one, I think you have to go as full strength as fitness allows.
Yeah, so I grew up in Luton, so I know the team, and yeah, their story is a wonderful, wonderful story. If you like those type of things, where they come from, and they've literally come from the conference and found themselves in the Premier League. And I know the CEO there, went to school with him, and so I know a lot of people at the club. And yeah, it's a wonderful, wonderful story. And there's a new ground coming in this couple of years, so it will continue, hopefully, for them. Now, they play a back three system. When they played in the Championship, they were very, very physical. They played like a 3-5-2, 2 strong forwards, run the channels, lots of long throws, free kicks, set pieces, very muscular. That physicality, it's not the same in the Premier League. They haven't been so dominant physically, but they haven't been dominated very much. They haven't been very, very in big gaps. I watched the Spurs game. Spurs were down 10 men. They got away with it with a goal quite late, and Luton got them on the break, and I think it was Chong that scored a great goal against Liverpool on the transition, and they've got pace and they've got a way of playing that they're really comfortable with, and so I don't look at this game and think it's going to be easy. I think it's going to be tough unless it's all about what we do in front of goal. It's quite a tight pitch, really tight ground, really vociferous. This is a day for Trossard, in my opinion. Those guys with a tight technique that can just get shots off. I think it's one of those. But yeah, we should be in good enough form to take them, and we just need to continue it, because the moment you slip up mentally and think it's going to be easy, and that's when you will slip up. And we've got to keep that focus. And that focus was there the weekend. It's really pleased to see. Yes, we slipped away towards the end, but it's not a drama, really. We focused again. When we played Burnley at home and we conceded that goal, I have to say, what stuck in my mind that day was how quickly we reacted, really, really quickly, and how the temperature went up and the pace went up. And I can't get over this collective thing we have going on at the moment about wanting to make sure we're the best of ourselves for as long as possible. We make a mistake, we react really, really positively. Very important. We don't rock up to Luton like Liverpool did and walk away with a draw or something like that. We just keep it going, because Aston Villa at home will be tough. Now, Villa play Man City on the Wednesday, and so they could be a little bit tired on the Saturday. But it's Saturday night live on TV, so Villa are going to bring it, and they're very good at home. So we got some challenging games. Brighton, we never do well against Brighton at home. And so these points really do matter before we go to Anfield, and that's the moment I can't wait for, right? So yeah, very important that we focus on this game. Another three at the back system, so we know we're playing against. 5 in a line. Can we get on the inside of them? Can we create those little triangles inside there and get around them and then and execute? I think we've had a lot of practice now. That's the fourth game in a row we're playing 5 at the back, so I think we should be fine, hopefully.
Yeah, I think it's a tricky one, because again, I'm cognizant of the fact that most of the players that I would want out there played for their nation and international duty, traveled a long way back, played against Brentford, played against Lens, played against Wolves.
What do you think Arteta's 3 days later? What do you think he's going to do?
I think he's going to go with the same team that played against Wolves, except I think White will probably come in for Tomiyasu just to be safe. Mm-hmm. And I think Kai might come back in for Trossard. Maybe he decides to play Trossard on the left and give Martinelli a day off. I think Jesus will start again, but it depends on load management, how they're looking at him. Because we play on Tuesday, we get an extra day before we have to play at Villa, which of course is going to be a big test, a big game that, is going to be circled on the calendar. The Unai Emery thing obviously makes that a bit bigger. That's a 5:30 kickoff on Saturday, and we play Tuesday. So an extra day there. And then anybody you're worried about should have midweek off next week.
Yeah. I mean,
everybody should have midweek off next week.
We've earned the right. Got to respect the competition. We've got to respect the competition, but we've earned the right to choose whatever team we want to choose. And so...
Because also, to your point, Clive, I want to say something about respect the competition. I think there's a really, really important point to make. You have to be careful about starting a quote-unquote disrespectful lineup at PSV if it's going to impact who qualifies. But I believe it's a dead rubber for PSV as well.
It is.
So that gives us even more scope to not have to play anybody of note, because we're not influencing the outcome of who's going to later rounds or things like that.
Yeah, there's a couple of people I'd like. I think there's about 3 million euros on the game, by the way, but just that's neither here nor there, but it's still money, right?
That's a bigger bet than you usually place.
And so, but I've been looking at. I'd like to see Sleeb have a little sit down, for honest with you, and maybe even Gabriel. So yeah, I'd like to see maybe a couple of new centre backs, because we're not going to get opportunity to rest those two guys, and it's just so important. They're so important. So. To see Kivior play centre back with maybe somebody else with him, whether it be Tomiyasu or White, I'd like to see that. Go look after those two boys, and there's obviously the golden child on the right wing. Wouldn't mind sitting him down for a little while as well, because when we go to Anfield, mate, this is it. This is it. This is a huge, huge game. I know we shouldn't look ahead, but I can't help it. I've got that one ringed, and. I didn't like how that game went last year. It was almost like it showed me what we tried not to do this year, which is let games get away from us, the lack of control aspect, being pinned back. That hasn't happened. I really want to see where we are. It's just such a huge, it's a unique environment and a unique game. I want to see where we are. I think we could surprise them, with our physicality, control, our intensity to get to the ball. But we need all our boys there. We need all our top boys there. I can't wait for it. I can't be honest with you, I can't wait for it. So we've earned the right in Europe, you said, Elliot. But let's focus on Luton. Let's make sure we put some scoreboard points pressure onto Liverpool and City. Any way you do that by doing your job in this game on Tuesday night.
Yep. Yeah. And by the way, I mean, in another bit of help, like tiny bit of help, before Villa host us on Saturday, they host Manchester City on Wednesday.
Yeah,
so they play
said that
one day soon. Yeah, right. But so they play one day sooner.
Yeah.
Than us.
Yeah.
I mean, sorry, one day closer to the game than us,
Yep.
and a game where their legs will be on fire after that. Because whatever you do against Manchester City, you're gonna have to be in your defensive shape for a long stretch. They're coming off a draw with Bournemouth. We might just maybe be catching them at a reasonable time. I mean, you never know. That's going to be a difficult game. But like the Luton game, someone asked me in the Discord, is this a trap game? I'm going to say the verdict, no trap game. It's not a trap game. Here's why. I don't think Villa away is a big enough fixture to generate a trap game, but also in general, I don't think any away league fixture is a trap because I think every away fixture in the Premier League is a difficult fixture. I think the fact that Liverpool just dropped points there helps Mikel keep everybody focused. If you're not sharp, look what can happen.
Yeah.
So I think we'll be well up for it and well focused. I think we'll go as strong as we can. I really do. So we'll just have to see. I mean, it sounds like Ben White is fit to start from Mikel's pre-match comments. It sounds like Tomiyasu might be as well, but I would guess that Ben White would be the guy there. It's funny, you talk about it being a game for Trossard. I almost wonder, Clive, if it's a game for Kai in the sense that it's so small that you may not be able to trick your way past as much. So you may want to deliver those balls into the box to the back post. You may want to be able to create a little more chaos in the box.
I think Kai will play. I think Luton are quite a big team, and he just helps on set pieces, etc. And so yeah, I think it's a good choice. But I liked your point about playing Trossard maybe on the left hand side and just having floating around the box. Hey, look, we got 5 subs, right? I never get too dramatic about starting 11. I only get dramatic when we don't recognise the game that's on offer. Right. And but knowing Luton where they are, it's a similar setup to Wolves, similar setup to Brentford, similar setup to Lons. Physical back three, double up in wide areas, move the ball around. We've done this now for a while, and we're getting better at it. We're running through people. We're getting better at it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and just to give you a sense of where Luton sit, I mean, they are just outside of the relegation zone, but that's only because of Everton's 10-point deduction. They are on 9 points, minus 13 goal difference. Quite a bit better than Burnley and Sheffield United on that front. But if you look at their expected goals allowed, they are very, very close to Sheffield United, 29.4 expected goals allowed. And in terms of expected goals for, they are in 18th, just ahead of Burnley and Sheffield United. So They have not been particularly strong. If you look at their home and away splits, they actually have been much, much better at home. Just the -2 goal difference at home. A win, 2 draw, and 3 losses. 6 goals for, 8 against. So again, not scoring a ton, but much, much tighter defensively in the top half actually of expected goals allowed at home. So they do know how to defend a bit at home, and we'll just have to find a way to pry them open. That's the
tight. It's gonna be tight.
Task
and my son went to watch Luton at Old Trafford the other week, and Luton lost 1-0, but it wasn't a thrashing. They were in the game, and they were transitioning on them continuously throughout the game. So yeah, I'm not dismissing this. Plus, half my friends support Luton, so trust me, I'm on edge. I'm on edge. I need this to go. I need this to go well. So yeah, it's going to be interesting, Elliot. Interesting.
And just for reference, in that game where they did draw Liverpool, they had 27% possession, and the XG was 2.6 to 0.8. So it can happen, obviously, but a bit of a shock based on the way the game was played. And I remember watching that, and I had no idea how they got a point out of that. So last but not least, before we get out of here, It was an interesting weekend around the league. Obviously, Manchester United embarrassed. I have said since preseason I thought Ten Hag would be sacked around Christmas. I still have Boxing Day as his final day at United. I see that being it for him. If the leadership of the club is in place to make a decision, I don't think Ten Hag makes it to New Year.
I wonder what
They
they'll
were really
do.
embarrassed. Before we move to City Spurs, do you have any thoughts on just how poor they look? And I think it's also a combination of how poor they look and toxicity, right? Sancho has just been totally kicked out of the group. Varane is not being played. But if you look at what Rashford did on the pitch, that is not acceptable. But with what they pay him, they got to find a way to make it work. It is a mess over there, and I am enjoying every minute of it.
There's so much mess. It's difficult to know where to go first. The ownership was in transition. They've wasted millions upon millions paying interest payments out they don't need to pay. Their infrastructure's all over the place. The manager has got about as much charm as a lump of wood. And why would you want to run through brick walls for him? And
he actually said if their offside goal had counted, it would have been 1-1.
Yeah.
You're drowning when you pull that shit out of the bag.
Mate, he hasn't got that read the room skill, has he? He hasn't got that.
No.
Some of his press conferences are a mile away, just hasn't got the right feeling for that club for me. It's just an average appointment, Every now and again they wake up and remember what badge is on their chest and they start playing and they get some late goals, for example. And I see it against Fulham, I've seen it against Wolves. I see it so many times. They just manage to scrape victories from the jaws of defeat. Europe has found them out up to a point, but you never know with them what they can do. But Elliot, whenever you're thinking about a manager, you're thinking maybe you should go, just take a close look at the players. And when you start seeing people jogging around that pitch with holiday brochures under their arm, then you need to think about changing the manager. And as simple as that. And there's too many player issues that means the manager can't outlast all of those players. And so you need to change him, or you need to make a very expensive decision about changing some of the players. One thing I did read at the weekend was that Jim Ratcliffe will come in. David Brailsford, who used to be Team Sky cycling manager, is going to come in as well. And if they come in, one of their key things is to buy British, which I thought was very interesting. Now, you look what's happened at Newcastle. They've gone British, with Dan Ashworth as their technical director coming out of Brighton and coming out of the England FA. He knows all the young England players. He's brought a couple in. They've gone quite British, and the foreign players that they have are very hardworking. They now have a team which fits the environment by which they play. It fits the area. So when those Newcastle fans look at that pitch, they see a team running for them. What do Manchester United stand for? And also by buying British, the British media has really taken Newcastle to their hearts, and all the sports watching conversation has disappeared and gone away. Right? And with good old Eddie Howe sitting there like an angel. So it'd be interesting to see how Man United, what direction they take going forward. If they do a similar thing, I think they can carry some good favour. They need to build an infrastructure, which they will do because the money will be found and because they are a cash cow waiting to really, really push forward. So I wonder who they'll go for, but I'm with you, Elliot. I think Ten Hag will be out of there by the new year.
Yeah, it's slipping away. And I think you can't have results and performances and player relationships all fall apart. Those are the three legs of the stool, right? There's how do you get on with your players? How are you performing? And then are the performances turning into results? Even with the results they've gotten, and they haven't gotten many. I mean, you look back at them, they've won the XG battle of their games, like under 20% of the games this season. I don't think we've lost the XG battle in any game this season apart from, I think, the City game, and it was like by 0.1, 0.4 to like 0.5.
Yeah.
They hardly win it ever. They don't get good results, and the results they get, they're just completely blagging. And then the players can't stand them, you can tell. I'm no tactical, but if you look at the tactical videos on social media, there's so many videos of like, someone explain to me what the build-up philosophy is here. Yeah. It's just like one player carrying it in. Like, I know Mainu is a young player and they put a lot of pressure on him against Newcastle, but like Newcastle would get it into the midfield and just run right through the midfield. Right through. It was unbelievable.
But
Yeah,
Wolves,
I
but
just don't.
Wolves
There's no
showed it on the
tactics. So.
first game of the season. Remember the Wolves game? I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Remember that game that they won late because they didn't get the penalty? Wolves missed the penalty they should have got. I'm thinking this isn't right. Why are everyone allowed to run through? When they played I think they haven't beat a team in the top 8 for like 2 years or something silly like that. Hey, look, Man United, it's coming, right? The end game is coming for them.
It's not. They're going to be bad forever.
It's just a matter of time. They will fix it by the way in time. They will do.
They won't.
They will, Elliot. I'm afraid they will. They're too big not to.
They sold their soul for all those years with Alex Ferguson. They're never going to fix it. The Liverpool game, there's not much to say there. It's unfortunate. I mean, 4 goals and they all came from outside of the box. I mean, 4 stunning strikes. Very, very interesting game. Liverpool, all their games seem to be basketball. And it's interesting because the thing with Liverpool, before we get on to City Spurs to finish off, Liverpool, their games are so open that I always feel like they can drop points, but they manage to get into games where they create transition opportunities and they're so good in transition. And I don't know why these teams are willing to play these basketball games with them, but they get into them and they seem to know how to pull out results doing that. But it always feels very nervy as a result, you know?
Yeah, well, you're a closet Liverpool fan, right? You love the way they play, all that attacking verve and taking shots. But if you
I'll say this, I prefer the way we play right now to the way they're playing right now. They are too stretched, too open.
Yeah, and fair enough. You can get through them. You can. They have talent in abundance. Obviously, they have, but they don't look like something. Well, you say that, right? When they have, I was quite impressed with them against City. I watched that game closely. I was quite impressed with how they stayed in the room and eventually executed. They weren't stunning, but City had to sort of respect their ability to score, you know, and how they exited, I thought was very smart on the day. Klopp's a smart guy. I think, but they don't give me the fear factor when it comes to stopping you. So I think it's all going to be about how you execute against them and then control the story of the scoreboard. So I think that's the thing that's different. With Liverpool before, you couldn't get out of your own third before. There was an oppressive pressure to them and a pace to them. It's a little bit more structured, a bit more pattern play, a bit more control of central areas. But they're controlling it with bodies that may not be suited for the roles at the moment. So they're still developing that midfield. They're still developing where they are. McAllister scored an unbelievable goal. That's not going to happen every week, right? And so you'd be saying to me, if this is a Liverpool Vision podcast, those chances are not going to continue. They're not going to do that every single week. They need to get much more, better quality chances. And so, yeah, that's where they are. So, again, I can't get them out of my head at the moment, Elliot. I'm really seeing that as a marker for us going forward. So I'm looking forward to it.
It's Anfield is such a scary fixture, but we shall see. It feels like a immovable object, unstoppable force, whatever the saying is, because we're going to try to control it and keep it from turning into that stretched open game, and they're going to try to run at us and turn it into chaos. It'll be interesting. All right, last but not least, how impressed were you with brave Tottenham, with the quality and bravery of Ange's boys? I mean, to have that tactic, to play at the Etihad with the tactic of hoping City miss tons of clear chances, just so brave, so brave, and it worked for them. And then, as I said at the top of the pod, at the end of the game, to have the finishing tactic of having the ref blow the whistle to stop a 1v1 with the keeper, I think it's so brave. Are they getting enough credit? Are they getting enough credit?
Oh, they're certainly getting enough credit. Flipping hell. For those that live in the UK, you know what I'm talking about. Crikey.
Oh, I know. It's
honestly,
despicable.
I'm just waiting for the Albert Top bus to come past the house. Do you know what I mean? Honestly, it's just
the
incredible.
DVD's already out, mate.
It's incredible, absolutely incredible. But what I will say, we spoke about Manchester United. What Spurs have found this year is they've found themselves. They've found something they can look at and say, that's tangible. I know what that is. I know what we're trying to do. It hasn't worked all the time, but we've got enough points on the board that I can't moan. They've had more memories this year than they had in the last 2 seasons, full stop. And they can see how they're trying to play. Now, I didn't predict that Emerson Royale could play as a centre-back. but he's managing to make it work up to a point, and they're getting away with it, right? So I have to say I appreciate the fact that they can now see something, and I look at Manchester United and I have a much greater worry for them. I didn't see. I do like Kulusevski as a 10, as a second forward type guy inside.
Mm.
I think he's a good player, and he manages to shoulder that one into the top of the net. They just got the Indian side over City. I think the rest of it was fairly average, and City didn't quite put them away. That has happened so many times against Spurs. But to leave them so angry at the end with the referee decision, again, it is what it is. It'll settle itself down. What I do find interesting about the whole referee debate now, it's almost like the debate has moved on from the actual instances, the errors, and the moments that we want to criticize. The debate seems to be much more how you react to the problems. So Pep's reaction, Diaz's reaction, Gary O'Neill's reaction. Oh, he's reacted well to the fact that we are absolutely rubbish at refereeing these games. Do you see what I mean? So now the reaction is under scrutiny. And obviously Arteta has now been the only person who's ever shouted at a referee, much like Robert Pires was the only person that ever dived in the box. Now your reaction will be called an Arteta reaction. And we are just sitting here
Did you hear that? For anyone who's, I just got to stop because I'm sure there are people listening didn't hear this. Pep Guardiola was asked about the refereeing decision. He said, I don't want to make a Mikel Arteta comment.
Yeah.
I don't want to do a Mikel Arteta comment.
And it came up in a press conference today. So that's now been defined. No one ever died before Robert Pires died against Portsmouth. So no one's ever shouted at a referee now because Mikel Arteta's got that label on his head. And I suppose we're just waiting for the FA charge to land. And so that big Anfield game we're talking about, I wonder if he'll be actually on the sideline to manage it. And if you think how important these games are, and when you're watching, you sit where I sit in the ground, and I'm watching Gary O'Neill and I'm watching Mikel Arteta literally direct their teams, where to pass, everything, the communication, the connection they have to their teams is so tight, so close. To not have you manage on the sideline would be a problem. It would be a problem. I think it's a big price for a team to pay, for that, shall we say. So one to watch there. But yeah, City are looking, people saying they're demotivated, Elliot. For me, I think part of that could be the problem. Part of that could be integrating new players. And part of that is everyone's had a look at them and they want to get around their midfield. They want to make them work. They're not going to sit off and just go into a low block system. They want to make them run backwards. And Chelsea did it, and Spurs did it for occasions as well. So, and Liverpool certainly did it once they exited out. So, yeah, just one to watch there. One to watch.
If you go back and look at the XG of the games between Spurs and City over the last 5 seasons, every game is 10 to 0.2. Final score 2-2.
Yeah,
it's the weirdest shit. Or 3-2 to Spurs. This was 2.6 to 0.5, I believe. In the coverage, the media coverage that Spurs are getting, let me give you some stats on Unai Postecoglou. Ange Emery. Good evening, mate. Let me give you some stats. And I know that there are some people out there that have some love for Unai, so fair enough. I don't count myself super among them, but that's okay. Let me give you some stats. They are currently 12th in expected goals allowed. They are 9th in expected goals for. They are 10th in expected goal difference. This is not a team that's playing well. They are not playing well. This is a team that is pulling an Unai, so to speak. Their defense has been poor all season. I know they have injuries now, but it was poor all season. Go back and look right from the beginning. It was not very good. I do not dispute, by the way, that Ange might have the right philosophy for how to play.
Yeah.
But I do not believe he has the team to play that way right now. Now, that is not Ange's fault. And if you like Ange and have time for him, he's Spurs manager, so I'm just not going to have time for him and I'm not going to like him. But I acknowledge that I think the way they want to play philosophically is better than what Conte was trying to do. And I do think in Youngmin Son, as much as it pains me to say it, they have an extraordinary talent who I thought was maybe finished, and he is not finished. He is extraordinary. And he is flourishing out of the shadow of Harry Kane. Not that he wasn't good with Kane, but I think he is flourishing as the talisman for this team. But the data is there if you care to look at it. that this is a team. I mean, they have blagged some results that you can, like the derby. How many times did Jorginho make that error in his career? Once, and he does it against them.
Just go
How
over
many
it,
times
Elliot.
does a ref blow a whistle like that in City? And not even that, just how many times does that game end with that result, with the chances City created? Now, on the City side of it, though, Clive, Erling Haaland may be facing a ban. He might be. I wouldn't rule it out. He did touch the ref. He laid hands on the ref. He battered the ref. He put the ref in the hospital. I'm kidding. I may have gone too big there. But, you know, first of all, by the way, like some of the faces, he's got a bit of the Phil Jones face about him. The angry face reactions.
I'm not gonna
We made
go
one an
there
emoji in
with-
our Discord.
I'm not going to go there with the player that should have won the Ballon d'Or last year. You know, I'm not going to go there. And he's
fair
done
enough,
everything.
but he may not be. I mean, they're going to be without Rodri for their trip to Villa. They're going to be without Doku, whose injury I've not heard about yet, but I imagine that's not a good one. Who knows what'll happen with Haaland? Like, you need a little luck if you're going to finish above City. And maybe there's just little slivers. Their form's not brilliant. What do you think about, like, maybe just Haaland get a ban of some kind and City drop a few more points here and there?
Honestly, if we keep winning our games, it won't matter, right? The pressure will go up, and then people start to think about what they want to win. Just keep winning. We've got some difficult games coming up, and let's just keep winning. And no one really thinks we're going to stay there because we bottled the top four, we bottled the championship. So why no one's even looking at us to say we're going to do anything? So you know what? That's why we're under the radar. We're 2 points clear, which is nothing. It's just one game week. We're 2 points clear, and no one's really looking. And that's probably what I really like. And when Spurs did what they did yesterday, I actually was quite pleased because that just keeps us out of the light for another few days, right? So if we win on against Luton and we win on Saturday night, things will change. You know, things will change, and we're going to have to cope with that level of light shining on us, which we did last year for 30 odd weeks. So we can do it. It's just a matter of just getting through these next games. And I'm not worried. I'm a lot more confident about our mentality going forward this year than last because we have some experience to go with it. And I like the makeup of this team. My only worry, Elliot, is injury, particularly maybe in a defensive area. I think that's the one area that I think we're light. And if you are thinking about January, I think we could see a defensive player come in to manage the fact that Tomiyasu won't be here. I know it's only 3 weeks, but you know it's a problem going. I feel we're one short anyway. With Timber not being here, and we should be rushing him back. We maybe should bring a defensive signing forward 6 months, and we may have to do some selling to create funds for that defensive signing.
Be interesting. By the way, early in the pod, I referenced that Liverpool didn't play midweek, and so they were able to finish stronger. I know they played them. They heavily rotated for a Europa League game against Lask, I believe. So just want to clarify that. It is very weird through 14 games to look at the table and see City in third. I realize that's, again, to your point,
only 14
one match
games.
Week's difference.
14 games.
Yeah.
Come on, we got a proper season here with no Christmas break, right? We got a proper season with no World Cup. We can get our legs up. This is for real now. So we just need to keep going. It's not the same as last year. Also, again, pleased to see the focus of our team, Elliot. It's really good. It's really strong.
Yeah. And I'm excited to watch us play. You know, I think we're starting to see signs of an attack that are a little bit more. You know, Mikel has been very clear. Last season was last season. And Clive, you and Mikel have been in lockstep on this. I don't know if do you have a WhatsApp group together? I'm not sure, but like you've done this thing where you say, you know, you were saying last season was a different story. You have to forget it, put it out of your mind. This is a new story. Mikel's been saying the same thing, but I see this beautiful hybrid developing now. The last few games, just starting to see a bit of an attacking dynamic that looks a bit like last season, but with all the control of this season. And a lot of that, by the way, thanks to the greatest player in the world, Declan Rice. So we can leave it there. We play tomorrow. We'll have an instant reaction tomorrow. We're going to have 3 big questions later this week. We'll have time at the back half of the week to do some Patreon stuff, and I hope you join us there. But we'll just be here. We'll be here doing stuff. Thank you so much for being here. Just again, like it's great to have these chats and have everybody to talk to on social or when we see you in person or wherever the case may be. So can't thank you enough for being a part of this. And with that, we will leave it there. Tim and Paul will be on in a future episode. Of course, Clive's on Twitter, Clive BFC. Thanks, Clive.
Thank you very much.
My name's Elliot Smith, Black Man's Gunner. We love you. We'll talk to you after Arsenal 10, Luton 0.